I've got to have a drink of water once in a while. I got a frog in my throat or something, and I start coughing, I'm going to turn red. And this is an appropriate speech too, because it works on lineage. It talks about, this speech is about me when I was a little fella. I'm a grandfather now, but I used to be a grandson. And I was one of 3 kids. My parents had one of each. And I was dyslexic, and I thought this was age lines, and I was looking at Cliff, who's also a grandfather, and sorry Cliff, it just kicked out. There was a little girl that I met, and I don't remember when it was. She just appeared one day, and it was Katie, my little friend, and I was 6, 7 years old, and she was around the same. I don't remember much about my childhood, but she stands out. At 7 years old, girls are yucky. And my 2 best friends, Luke and Pierre, had some things to say about Katie and myself. And I didn't like it. And I put my foot down and I told Pierre, if you ever make fun of Katie again, you're not riding my tricycle. It was a big one with a big wheel on it, and it went like stink. And that straightened him right out. We used to sit in the curb, and we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of pressures, we didn't have cell phones, variety stores. We sat in the curb and drank water out of pop bottles. And we'd pretend it was something else. And Pierre and Luke, they both like Coca-Cola. Jimmy, I like root beer. I still like my different beers. And Katie, I said, what are you having, Katie? And she told me that she's having licorice. Katie, there's no such thing as licorice pop. And she told me, when you're attending, you can have anything you want. And she taught me something. She taught me a lot. She was my mentor. We used to meet on a little windowsill. Right across from an alley. We lived in a gray house, and the alley was here, and over here was Katie's house. My mother's kitchen was right above it, and she used to listen to us sometimes. And she told me, I really like it when you and Katie are telling stories and laughing about stuff. And it made me feel good. She made me see things that were right in front of me. We'd be sitting on our windowsill, and I liked the way she said my name, and she always said my name after any kind of an utterance. She looked up. She said, I see an angel, Jimmy. An angel in the clouds. I followed her where she was pointing. I said, Katie, it's not an angel. That's a butterfly. And we both broke out laughing, and I could hear my mother laughing upstairs. She didn't have any prejudice. We didn't know a thing like that. She was just a plain little girl. I guess you could call her a tomboy now, but she had one of those coveralls on, you know, with the little straps at the top. And they just hung on her. And she had little skinny legs coming out with feet at the bottom. And she had one of those little white flowery shirts with a round collar. And it had pink little daisies on it with a yellow inside. And that was her favorite. The little dusty, the little road beside our house. When it would rain, we'd have little puddles of water. And we watched nature. We explored our whole planet. We were only 6 or 7 years old. We weren't allowed to cross the street. We didn't know anything else but that alleyway and our windowsill. And we watched a couple of birds landing in the puddle after the rain. And the little bird would shake his head in there. And he'd pull out a worm. And she'd laugh, and I'd laugh. And she said, it's sketty. It's sketty. I said, it's not spaghetti. And we'd imitate those little birds. And we'd practice how they walked. And they grabbed the little worm, and they washed their face in the water. But it wasn't until much later in our relationship She wasn't a girlfriend, she wasn't anything else, she was just my friend. And she looked over at me and she said, "I like you, Jimmy." I didn't know what to say. I knew my dad liked my mom, and every time he'd leave the house, he'd give her a little kiss on the cheek. So I opened my mouth and I kissed her cheek. She went like this and jumped off the windowsill, and her little feet was going, and her coveralls were just staying there, and she ran to her house. She never said a word. I thought, oh my goodness, did I hurt her? Did I scratch her face with my tooth? What have I done? I couldn't sleep. I was the first one at the windowsill in the morning, and I waited for Katie to come. And there she came. I could hear the screen door slam, and the wooden door hit the door jamb, and here she was skipping like nothing's wrong right down the alleyway. And she took her spot beside me, and she started to tell me about Mickey Mouse and Annette Bolicello and the club and the Huey, Dewey and Louie and Katie. Don't you remember yesterday what you told me? She cocked her head to one side and she said, "Yeah, Katie, you remember after that when I kissed her face?" She said, "Yeah." "Katie, did I hurt you?" "No." "Katie, why did you run away?" She looked at me and she said, "I had to pee, Jimmy." Things aren't always like they seem. And we were the best of friends. She was my very, very dearest friend. And much after 50 years, she still is. And when I'm driving by that gray house right beside the alleyway sometime, I think of the last time I saw her in the black of my dad's blue Chevy when we were moving. She stood there and we stood by. And I never saw my friend after that again. And I guess it really hurt because somewhere in high school I realized that we only moved 2 blocks away. And I drive by that house some days and I look at her standing there in her coveralls. And I said, "I like you."